Slum Venice was actually a thesis project when I was back in university, and this was submitted in 2009. So the images might look quite dated, but hopefully you'll get the idea and the overall concept that was behind it. The project itself is based in Makoko, in Lagos. Amanda's already spoken about that or touched upon that. And so I'm just setting my timer now so that at least I can try and stay within 7 minutes of that. Okay, so I had just returned from a trip to Venice for the Biennale. I think this was in 2008. I think if we count that, I think that was the last one. So the one before the course. So we had a choice. We were given free rein of our final thesis to say, pick anywhere in the world, do anything that you want, but these are the underlying themes. So you have to do something on a very large scale and something that you feel like you're really connected. Upon the return, I had seen these forts. The coastal defense forts in Kent. And I thought they were really interesting, and I thought, okay, well, this is option one. This is something I feel I could work with. But then looking at it, I was like, well, I don't really know how to connect with it on a deeper level. So I had to go back to the drawing board. And I said, okay, well, when I was younger, growing up in Lagos, I knew of this place. Anytime we drove past Third Mainland Bridge, you could smell it, you could see the smoke. So I called my mom and I was like, Mom, what's the name of that place that, whenever we drive, you always smell smoked fish? And she said, oh, that place is called Makoko. So I started doing my research. Found so many articles about the community. And then I just, made my choice. And then I started again the entire project with, this aerial exploration of the site itself. At the time, I didn't know that Makoko was actually in two sections, the section on land and the section on water. I was just more attracted to the section on water because that was what I had, known growing up. So I did my research, saw the water community, saw the sawmills that were close by, Okobaba sawmills, saw the connection or the relationship with the water, with the lagoon, with the fishing, and then how the fishing itself sustains the community. So I decided to come, I looked at slums elsewhere in the world, and I landed on a slum upgrading proposal. So what I'm about to show you now is the 3 stages of this proposal. The first was, 1, how do we go about, or the questions I was asking myself at the time really was, how do I come up with a realistic proposal that we can actually take to the government and say, okay, fine, we understand that this is a problem, right, for you, for the city, for the inhabitants. Now, what can we actually put forward that you can stand behind, and will also give the people in the community dignity? So ultimately, it became like a guidebook as to, 1, if the community does need to be relocated, like they did with the Marocco displacements back in, goodness knows, I don't know if anyone remembers the story. But it was a case of, I think, over 100,000 people, or 200 maybe, that were displaced from VI extension. And they were relocated to Jakonde. So I said, okay, fine, well, if this is the case, and if this is ultimately what is going to happen within the community, then 1, we either come up with a plan for how to recreate an environment like this on the water, because that is all they know, how to recreate that environment and how to build it in a more sustainable way, and also give them back their dignity, right? Because essentially they would be moved from somewhere to somewhere else that they had no connection with. And then if that is not possible, then how do we go about improving their existing location? So this became like the proposal for that. So the first section will talk about how
to actually upgrade infrastructure as is, and how their dwellings would be modularized, and then it would feed into like a networking system. And then the second would be how to sustain the community itself with the design of this really interesting roof that would serve as an architectural icon, which met the requirements of the proposal of the project. And then the third would be the program that would inform the overall design. So that would be the creation of schools, of the marketplace, and of an aquaculture and fish processing section that would then ultimately sort of feed back into the community and help it to thrive. So after my research, this was my little artistic impression and montage. So you've got the relationship with Third Mainland Bridge, you've got Makoko here, and you've got the people on the fishermen on the canoe there in the distance, and then the fish in the lagoon as well. So, infrastructure. I analyzed major arterial routes through the community. So you can see there in the dark red lines, the major routes through Makoko something just exploded. Okay. And then also the smaller routes that actually sort of branched out from these major arteries. And then we sort of looked at how, for instance, now within this section, right, we said, okay, if we were to demolish a group of houses, if needs be, if we really, really have to, we have to do it at the same time building or rebuilding. So while we're trying to clean up the entire, we root out the old stilts that are there at the moment, knock in some new ones, and then put in this new layout that actually allows each family, based on their size, to plug into the new network that would actually have the infrastructure running within it. So it was a series of walkways and bridges, that just went through the entire site. So this just sort of like was meant to be a guidebook that you could literally just, hand out. You could drop off, and then you have a diagram that actually shows you how to build your own house based on the size of your family. Oh, I've run out of 7 minutes. Wow, that was quick. Okay, so this was the modular design there, and then this was sort of like a cross section of what it would ultimately look like when you were done, or even in the process of. So so this just sort of showed the relationship between each of the units, and then the overall when it was finished. So you've got like the canoes there, you've got the bridges linking to each other. So I'll just speed through all this, and then this just had a little cross section of what it would look like, during construction. So the next section here was the design of the roof itself. Now, I went through a series of exploratory models that I really like the idea of a singular repetitive element that when a force is applied to it in one way or another, right, it would respond differently. So this is what then informed sort of the design of the roof. So what the main idea behind it was, depending on what's going on the ground. So if, for instance, you've got your smokehouses, or you've got something, a section where people need more shade from sun, you then start to see a very interesting pattern that actually happens on the roof through the day, or whenever anyone is driving past. So at the moment, when you're driving down towards Herbert Macaulay, this section here is that entire where they sell the wood. So this is just another impression of different types of programs. This is where the aquaculture area was going to be. The sawmills would still be operational, but they would just be on, closer to the water. And then this sort of highlights the different sections within the group. So this was aquaculture, this was fish smoking, this was fish prep. When you because what we find is that we don't really have docks here. in any other city that you go to, there's a place that you go to specifically where you can go and get the catch of the day. So I thought that this was something quite interesting about this to implement. Then you have your general market, then you've got like healthcare, and then you've got the school areas there. So these are just other impressions of the school, the general market. The stalls were designed in such a way that you could configure them in a number of ways. So depending on the size of your business, then you could then pick which one you wanted. So this was the smoke housing area that's actually what they use on site. They smoke in the drums, and then sometimes they even smoke on other pits. And then this was the final dock. So yeah, that's it.